All right, what is going on, sports fans? This is Sports Talk, and it is a big sports talk at that. It's the first one of 2018, the first one of the spring semester, and I think everybody knows what's going on this week. It's Super Bowl week, so every sports fan knows how big of a deal this is. It's, if not the best, one of the best weeks in the whole sports calendar. The whole world basically stops, and will stop this Sunday when Super Bowl 52 is on NBC. And this year's Super Bowl pits the AFC champion New England Patriots against the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch of Super Bowl 39, where the Patriots prevailed over the Eagles. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of Sports Talk. I am Nicolo Manzo, and today we are going to break down the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about last week's championship games. We'll go through a little matchup stuff. We'll go through some numbers, some analysis, some analytics, because I know some people out there are big numbers people. And then what is a Super Bowl conversation without a prediction, right? So I will give you my prediction as to how this game is going to turn out. Now, I guess I should send out a disclaimer right off the bat. I am an Eagles fan. I've been an Eagles fan since I was a kid. I remember the Patriots game and the Super Bowl a little bit. That's just when I was starting to get into football, kind of, and then this is the first time they've been back there since, so I have to say, obviously, my heart is in it, so I do have a little bit of a rooting interest here, maybe a little bias. I'll do my best to avoid that, but I am an Eagles fan at heart, so I had to get that out there so that nobody could say anything about it later. I want to get everything out there so everyone knows. All right, so I guess we'll start with the last week's championship games. We'll start with the early game, the AFC game. The AFC game was the Patriots against the Jaguars. Patriots, of course, have home field advantage, so the game was played in Foxborough. And the game was actually a pretty interesting contest. Now, before the game, everyone that I talked to about sports and around campus and everything, I did say I thought the game would be close because I have a lot of respect for the Jacksonville defense and what they did this year. But I did say that I thought the Patriots would win because it's tough to bet against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick because we know the greatness of what that combination has produced over the years, including 5 Super Bowl championships and now another Super Bowl trip this year. So what are a few takeaways from that game? Well, we know the Patriots won 24-20, but it was a come-from-behind win, and the Patriots found themselves behind in a big game again. So a little bit reminiscent of the Super Bowl from last year against the Falcons, obviously. Not quite the deficit they faced last year. That was something else. But this year, there was a 10-point deficit, and they rallied from that. Now, Brady did a good job against the top secondary combo in the NFL and A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey. So, yeah, he did a really nice job there in that game. He got the win. He did what he had to do, and it kind of is the Patriots' M.O. late in the game. Bill Belichick, Brady, they do what they need to do to get the win, and even the defense stepped up in that game. But I will say that the defense allowing 20 points to Blake Bortles and digging themselves an early hole there isn't something they're going to want to repeat in the Super Bowl. A few big takeaways from that game, other than what happened directly involving the play, I guess, would be Brady's stitches, which Ian Rappaport just reported that the stitches were removed. So the whole hand thing, I guess maybe we could call it handgate or stitchgate, that's kind of put to bed now, and we don't have to worry about that for the Super Bowl. Also, Rob Gronkowski, he was concussed in the game. Now, you know, concussion times for recovery, they vary, but we could probably figure that he'll be healthy for the Super Bowl. It's a 2-week recovery, and it's going to take a lot to keep Gronk out of the Super Bowl, I'm sure, and he's one of Brady's favorite targets, so they're going to do everything they can to get him onto the field. So switching over to the NFC side now, the Eagles were at home against the Minnesota Vikings, who actually were the top defense in all of football in the regular season, giving up 275.9 yards per game. That was good for the number 1 overall defense in football. Now, going into this game, there was a common theme, which it has been all postseason, really, that the Eagles were underdogs at home, which doesn't happen very often in the playoffs. And really that no one gave them a shot against the Vikings. Very few people did. And the Eagles really proved in that game what they were made out of. And Nick Foles, wow. Talk about an all-time performance. You could say what you want about Nick Foles, but Foles was just on fire. Every ball he was throwing was almost right on the money. It seemed like he couldn't miss. And the deep ball, which was a concern for him, he hit Jeffrey for that long touchdown, and he had another ball down the field that I think one might have been broken up to Torrey Smith, and he might have connected with him on another one, but both balls were just right on the money. he really looks sharp. And if he looks that sharp in the Super Bowl again, I got to tell you, it's going to be hard to beat the Eagles. It's going to be hard because New England is the number 30 pass defense in the league. So that's not something that they're going to want to see if Foles is on the money in that game. Now, the Eagles did what they've been doing all season in the NFC Championship game. They've played great defense. They did it. They shut down Minnesota's offense. And they were doing what they were doing earlier in the year with Carson Wentz, something that was absent, was putting up some big numbers on offense. 38 points. That's a big deal to me in looking at this game. I know we can't just look at last week's game predicting the Super Bowl, but it goes a long way. 38-7 over a team that was the top defense in football. I mean, that's got to count for something. And the fact the Patriots did have a hard time with a good defense for a majority of the game until Brady pulled the late touchdowns, that's a little concerning too because we know how good of a defense the Eagles are. All right, so now moving forward into the Super Bowl game, now that we understand how the two teams got there, let's do some matchups, some head-to-head stuff. Well, I may have some disagreement out there on this, but I really do believe the Eagles are a better roster top to bottom. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that I think they have an edge at running back. I think that's really can't be debated. I think that the receiving core in Philadelphia probably is a little bit better than New England's receiving core because they have Brandon Cooks, and then after that there is a little bit of a drop-off, I think. I think the tight end play, obviously Gronk is Gronk, but Ertz has had a good year too. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, the big thing for me is just that Philly's defense has been superior this year, and we know the old phrase that defense wins championships, and I'm starting to believe that might ring true again this year. Now, before I get ahead of myself here, I have to say that I am not in any way, shape, or form a Brady hater or a Patriot hater. I actually have great respect for Brady and what he's accomplished and the coaching mind of Bill Belichick, regardless of some sketchy things that have gone on in the past. And the one big advantage they have on the field, on the actual playing field, is Tom Brady. And it's very difficult to bet against Tom Brady. It is. He finds ways to get things done. We saw that last year in a game that we didn't think it would be possible, even if the Falcons made mistakes, to get back in the game, and he did it. And the other big advantage they have is their coaching staff, led by Bill Belichick. He knows how to look at a game and try to find weaknesses. But Coach Doug Peterson from the Eagles had a good quote earlier in the week, and that was that we, meaning the Eagles, can't be worried about them. It's more about us. And that's exactly the right attitude because you kind of saw that a little bit in the AFC Championship game where Jacksonville was in control of that game, and in the second half they just got a little bit timid. They were too worried about letting Brady get the ball back to play the game that got them to where they were. They kind of went into almost like a sort of a prevent offense, if you will. They didn't open up. They just decided, you know what, we're going to do everything we can to keep Brady off the field. And in turn, they basically handed the Patriots the game. And Peterson is absolutely right when he says they need to focus on what they do well. They need to establish their running game, which New England is, again, the 16th best run defense in football, so middle of the pack. And if you establish the running game, then you're going to force their secondary, which is ranked 30th in football, to be up to the task of stopping the passing attack. And if Foles is what he was last week, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's going to be hard to beat them. He is going to be a big key in this football game because we know Brady's going to bring it, or we figure he will. But Foles is a little bit of a wild card, but you have to have faith, especially after last week, that he will bring it as well. All right, so we talked about the matchups. We talked about all that stuff. Another big thing is the experience and youth factor in this game. The Patriots have been here plenty of times before. I mean, this is the first time the Eagles have been there since the first meeting with the Patriots in Super Bowl 39. So it's really an issue of experience versus youth in this game, too. You have to hope that the Eagles are going to be able to keep their heads about them on such a big stage, late in game, in a game that could be tight. A lot of times Super Bowls go down to the wire. Brady's been in plenty of games that have gone right down to the wire, down to the final play. Like last year, it was the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. So that's an edge for the Patriots. But again, on the field, I really do believe that the Eagles are just a little bit better top to bottom. Now, going into the actual matchup itself, we talked about the strengths and weaknesses. I think the Eagles have to look to get their running game off early, but also to give Foles some chances. Let him see what he can do and get a good feel for what you have in him in that game. See if he's going to have the deep ball. Is he going to be able to pick apart that New England secondary? If he is, and that's a feather in your cap, and you know you have that moving forward. For the Patriots keys are they really have to They have to stop the run. They have to stop the pass. They have to clamp down because they have to have faith in Tom Brady that he will score. Now, the Patriots, really, what it comes down to is the fact that Brady is going to have to take down a Philadelphia defense that has been flying high all season long. At the end of the day, if Brady does what he has been doing, then maybe there's little to anything you could do to stop him. So let's get into the actual prediction now of the game and what's been going on with the game in terms of betting lines, over-unders, and stuff like that. So I checked the paper this morning, and the Patriots right now are a 4.5-point favorite, which means they're minus 4.5. The Eagles get 4.5 points in the game. They're giving 4.5 if you don't quite understand the betting. So they opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. Now, that's a pretty big number for a Super Bowl game, and if I was a bettor, if anybody out there was looking to make a bet, I would say to probably, get on the Eagles at plus 5.5 because that's a big spread for a Super Bowl game. And the 4.5 points shows you that the Eagles are getting a lot of action. A lot of the money's being put on the Eagles right now. And, that line may continue to dip a little bit until maybe a lot of people throw money at the Patriots and they get it to a line they like, and then it'll have sort of a correction. But I do definitely like the Eagles with the points in this game. If you're looking to bet that way, I would definitely take the Eagles and the points. And that's plus 4.5 today. Now, the over-under, if you're interested in that, is 48. You're going to see in a couple of minutes that my prediction is pretty much right on that number. So really, it's a judgment call as to whether or not you think it's going to go over and under. I think that largely depends on the kind of game that the Patriots have against the Eagle defense. I think the Eagles are pretty much locked into their number of maybe scoring, hopefully between 20 and 30-ish points maybe. Or maybe somewhere in the high teens to low 20s if the game doesn't go quite as well as they want it to. But I think that the big part of that over-under is whether or not Brady's going to put up a lot of points against the Eagle defense. All right, everybody. So we've talked a lot about it. I've rambled on here for a little while about the matchups and how they got here and everything. And now it's time for the prediction. All right, well, I started this podcast off by saying that I am a lifelong Eagle fan. Or I guess not lifelong, but since I was a little kid. And I have to say that through the injuries this year and with Foles stepping in and everything, and nobody really ever gave them a chance in the playoffs, and they continue to win games the way they want to win them, playing good defense, grinding out wins on the ground, and in last week's game, Foles really opened up the offense, and that gave me a lot of confidence going forward into this game. So with that being said, my prediction is going to be 27-17 Eagles. Now, why am I picking that? Well, I do believe that the secondary of the Patriots is going to be in for a pretty big test, considering that I think the Eagles are going to establish their running game well early on in the game behind their offensive line. I think that Foles will have another good game. I just feel like it's in the cards for him. And I'm not trying to disrespect Brady, but I do think that the Eagle defense just has continuously proven they're up to the challenge against everybody. And the final test is Brady. And nothing more fitting than having to beat Brady to win the Super Bowl, because you have to beat the best to be the best. Well, I guess that just about does it here for this episode of Sports Talk. All right, everybody. Hey, have a great Super Bowl Sunday out there. Get the guacamole ready, get the chips and dip ready, get the hot wings ready, and just be safe, be responsible, have fun, enjoy the week, and we will see you back here on the next episode of Sports Talk. Until then, I'm Nicolo Manzo.